Hello and welcome to WELSTech, the place where we explore the intersections of technology and ministry. Today on the show, we discuss some of the key principles to keep in mind when designing your website, plus a list of recommended web designers if you're considering a project like that. We're so happy you decided to join us. Enjoy the show. WELSTech is a bi-weekly podcast exploring the intersections of technology and ministry. It is part of the podcast network sponsored by WELS, the Wisconsin Evangelical Lutheran Synod. Our show today is hosted by Martin Spriggs and Sally Draper. Welcome back to WELSTech, everybody. This is episode 665, recorded on October 26th, 2021. Show about technology and ministry and where those two intersect. And joining me at the corner, as usual, Sally Draper. Hey, Sally.
Hi, Martin. Happy to be joining you on this beautiful fall day. I'm wondering how that whole switch from audio only to audio and video is going for you. You're the one who carries that heavy load there.
It's added a little bit of post-production time, but it's been fun. I use an open, I don't know if it's actually technically open source. It's called DaVinci Resolve. And there's a free version and a paid for version. And it's actually very easy to use. I think the hardest part was kind of coming up with the new opening and the closing and the music. And once that's kind of behind you, you get into a little bit of a rhythm. So probably better to ask our viewers than me how it's going. We do our best, but it's been fun kind of converting that, and gives us a little more opportunity to show some stuff for those people who want to watch. Helps us to practice good hygiene and get prepped and look our best on Tuesdays when we do this too. So good incentive.
I did remember about 10 minutes beforehand. Oh yeah, I'm going to be on camera. I better look in the mirror, make sure I look good. And we're using Zoom to do this, Martin, which maybe lessens a little bit of the issues on the audio side, because Zoom captures multi-channel audio and makes that a little bit simpler.
I would say we don't have enough of a history of using Zoom to capture this to say, yeah, it's bulletproof. But so far, it's been pretty good. I think this is our third time. And the first time we did it, we had Jason and Rachel on. So we actually had four people. And Paul Patterson too. Right. Yeah. We had 5 on. And it performed well. So I hopefully the audio quality is maintaining that high level, and we're adding that video component. It helps that we only record twice a month or every 2 weeks. I think that helps our sanity. I think that gets us a little bit more breathing room as far as planning. So there is quite a bit of planning that goes into these shows, and then the production we can add some production time to it. So hopefully it's a blessing.
Good. Well, thanks for that work. Something new.
All right. So in that planning process, we try to come up with timely topics. And from time to time, actually fairly regularly, Sally, we get questions from the folks, from our listeners, from just people that we interact with from time to time, about resources. And one of those most oft asked for resources is people who know how to design websites. And we got an email from Pastor Dan Olson asking just for that. And I think we had to scratch our heads, or sometimes we have to scratch our heads because we don't have or hadn't had a list that we maintain that we can just dole out and say, here's the 10 that you can feel comfortable contacting.
Not 10, Martin, 10 is such an overused number. I think we should go for 6 that people should contact. And we do have 6 names now because we put out our feelers and we came up with a list. They all have websites, and we'll be sure to include their websites in the show notes. But just to give a quick shout out to different people that said they have that kind of business that they offer. Maybe it's their full-time gig. Maybe it's something they do on the side. I'm not really sure in all the cases, but a great place for us to start as we're looking for these kind of people. So just a rundown of the names that we will include in the show notes: Jonathan Rudot, Becky Atkinson, Eric Miller, Emma Hislop, Diane Lohr, who we actually had on the show some time ago, and Ali Papathopoulos. So quite excellent. A long list. Rolled right off the tongue.
Thought you were going to make me do that this show, but you jumped right in there. A+. Awesome.
Thank you,
and
sir.
I can't say that we know all of these people, so some of this is word of mouth. So we put out kind of feelers and said, who have you worked with? Who is available out there that kind of gets church and school? This is the list we came up with so far. So if there are others out there that you've worked with, that can be individuals or companies. It's not exclusive to, carrying the Wells card. But I think it's good to have reliable people that we've got some confidence in, that we can recommend to other people. So that was, we've got a start of a list here.
Definitely.
One thing we wanted to do, other than just giving you the list and kind of as a show topic, is just continue that discussion of web design, because I know a lot of people aren't going to hire somebody. They're going to kind of do it themselves, whether that be a volunteer or a committee at church. Sometimes it's the pastor or a teacher that's responsible for it. And there are lots of resources out there that can be had. And we're going to go through, I think, an excellent one here about things to watch out for when you design a web page. And because of things like WordPress, like Wix, like Squarespace, that kind of do some of this for you, they do the heavy lifting of the content management engine on the back end and kind of the links and some of the more techie stuff. Some of the things that we found a good article from Adobe that goes through are just kind of good things to keep in mind. And so there's a whole long article. We pick the top 9 from this list. And that top, you hear about top 10 lists all the time. Why don't we break the mold and go with the top 9 list? Maybe there's another one we'll throw in there as a bonus. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But let me bring up the list here so that we can work off of the screen. And I think one thing to note is that this is an article written or on the Adobe webpage, and it's connected with their XD product. And if you're not familiar with Adobe XD, it's basically a layout program or a design program for web pages. It helps you mock up web pages, the design piece. And it actually can be given to a web developer who could take the pieces that you've built and build the web page for you. It can build mobile-sized screens, tablet-sized screens, web page-sized screens. It's really a complete product. So if you're interested in checking that out, we'll put a link to that as well. But they have a nice learning site, and on their principles, in their principles section, there is an article called Web Page Design, a Comprehensive Guide. And I would have to say, Sally, it is pretty comprehensive. It's a long one. That's why we're just going to pick our 9 top ones and just briefly discuss them, just to give you a little bit of a taste. But certainly, if you're interested, go to the article, read it from top to bottom, especially if you're in the design or redesign process with your church, school, or organization website.
Yeah, maybe before we dive into those 9, Martin, I just wanted to give a little bit of a reflection. And that is, as I read it, it applied, even though websites I have in mind are kind of past this point of initial design, at least. I think we all should kind of realize that the web design game is never done. There's no finish line here, folks. And so you can always improve and iterate your site to be better, more up to date with the current standards, that kind of thing. So it's really an article and a topic for everyone, I think.
Yep. And you're so right. It is a never ending process as things change, as content, obviously, different ways to present content. We've moved from just the text only to audio to video to interactive websites. All kinds of technologies bring that to bear. So, where would you like to start, Sally Draper?
Well, near the top of the article, kind of one thing that they mentioned right off the bat, before you dive into layout and what your pages are how your content's going to be delivered and things like that, navigation is probably your number one concern, where you're trying to figure out the quickest and simplest and easiest way to get people to exactly what they're looking for on your website. So keeping your navigation simple, keeping it in front of them in a consistent place always, providing them context of where they're located on your website, maybe something called breadcrumbing, which is kind of the drilled down location visible to them so they know where they are in the website. Martin, you just showed on the Adobe website that this article is under the principals main menu. So that's nice to be able to have that context and, keep up with where you are. They also mentioned just in general, navigating people around the website. If it's a link that's internal to your website, have it open in the same window. But if it's an external link, have it open in a new window. And they put a lot of emphasis on how your back button behaves. So people are used to using the back button in the browser to be able to go right back to where they were when they clicked the link, not the top of the page where they were when they clicked the link, but the actual scrolled down location where they were. So just kind of keeping it simple and intuitive. And I think all those kind of rules make sense, but you really need to take a step back and consider your website. Reminded me, I want to say it was in Sleepy Eye when we worked with the website there at St. John's in Sleepy Eye. We had kind of two distinct areas, a church site and a school site, but we tried to make the navigation consistent between the two. So it was very obvious where you were and how you could get back to the other side if you wanted to. So it takes some brain power to figure those things out.
Yeah, you knocked off 3 of the 9 right up off the top: navigation, breadcrumbs, and the back button. All really important concepts. I think most people are familiar with specifically breadcrumbs, and they claim the back button is perhaps, they quoting here, they say the back button is perhaps the most used button in the browser. So make sure it works according to user expectations. And I guess I've found that to be very, very true. I wanted to talk a little bit about those external links that you were talking about as well. And one thing that I've seen in some applications and on some websites is when the link takes you off of their web page, there's sometimes a little symbol there that indicates, hey, this is an external link. So if you click here, you're going someplace else. And I think that's helpful, so that when you see a regular link, hey, you're staying within the family, their web family within their website. But sometimes they link off to other locations, and it's helpful to not only just open up in a new tab or a new window, but let them know that that's going to happen as well, so that they know they're leaving your page. Sometimes there's even a big blaring message, yeah, you're about to leave our site. Seen that on banking sites and such. But I think just a little bit of an indicator that, hey, this is a external link is a good thing.
Very good. I don't know if I can keep going, but the next one is more of a global thing as well. And that has to do with search, making search available, because people come to your site to try to find things. And oftentimes search is a way they want to do that. They talked about placement. They had this cool grid in the article where they kind of, I guess, analyzed websites to determine where search was located. And the most common locations are in the upper left or the upper right areas of the screen. And so don't put search down at the bottom, put it up at the top, perhaps in one of the corners, and people will be looking for it there because that's a common location for it. Also, use the little magnifying glass icon. You've seen that on plenty of websites, I'm sure, and it's kind of a global indicator that there's a search capability there. I've been to websites where search is a little bit camouflaged, but I can always find that icon and kind of click in that general area and the search comes up. So that icon is kind of a visual for your site users.
This would be one area that I think some sites really fall down in because it is such a needed tool, and especially on mobile screens where sometimes the menuing system is tucked behind that hamburger menu. Search is sometimes the primary way people navigate your stuff, and if your search is lousy, they can't find your stuff, then you're the loser, and they're going to go someplace else. They really that needs to be a good experience, and sometimes the basic search is available, but sometimes there's even an advanced search if they really want to get granular. So put some time, energy into that search. And that also means that when you're creating pages, and if there is depending on what system you're using, how you create those pages may include metadata or different terms that you might use toward the top of the page that are going to come up in search engines. You want to pay attention to that as well, even if they're just searching on your own page, not let alone whether they're searching on Google.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. The next part of the article then kind of shifts gears away from these global type decisions to more how your pages are laid out and what kind of design elements you use and how they function. And first off, I think they give you good encouragement to be concise, to use white space on your pages, kind of the less is more kind of mantra. If you're doing a form, keep the things you're asking kind of short and make it into multiple pages if necessary, so that people aren't overwhelmed by a whole lot. I have to think of Google when I think of this kind of rule, because if you go to google.com, all you get is that one search box. It's pretty simple, maybe a special doodle of the day, but they keep it very simple. And what's locked behind that search box is probably the biggest collection on the web potentially, but you don't feel that way when you go to Google. You aren't intimidated to search their search engine because it's simple. And I think that is consistent with what they're recommending in the article.
Yep. One thing, and I don't know if you've got this on your list, but they talk about wireframing. This comes up quite a bit, and I'm teaching, interestingly enough, a class on web design for Area Lutheran, Amazing Grace Virtual Academy, it's called now. It used to be Area Lutheran High School is online. So my students are going through an exercise of wireframing, where they are using tools to lay out the page before they actually build it. And they have a little section here on wireframing. They say use a low fidelity wireframe to privatize essential elements, which basically means where are you putting these elements on your page? So you're thinking through it before you just jump right in. And one thing that let's see if I can find it here. I'm looking in the article. They say there is a pattern, a natural scanning pattern when people come to a web page where their eyes naturally go. And normally that is, at least for Americans, top left is where they first look, and then they scan across the page to the right. And then they go down and do it again. So they go down below the top section, and they basically go left to right. So obviously you want something, the important stuff in the upper left, and then secondarily right, et cetera, et cetera.
So it looks kind of like a capital F. And the other scanning pattern is a capital. I put V on here in my notes, but it's a Z, where they scan left to right, and then they diagonally
zigzag,
go down.
Right. There's two.
So, and that actually was 0.6 on the list, Martin. So you covered another point. Good job.
Okay. Did we skip one?
No, I think we're
okay.
We're right on
keep
target.
Going. What's next?
Yeah. Next up, I kind of lumped together a couple of things they said. I think this will be obvious in today's day and age that video and even animation on your website is very well received these days. So people are willing, and they stay longer on your site to watch video content. And then animations kind of come into play as well. If you have animated elements on your website, that is well received as well. So just kind of some encouragement around that.
One thing they did talk about, this was also on our list of top 9s in this article, is scrolling. For years and years, we had talked and encouraged web designers to put all the good stuff above the fold, so to speak.
Fold, yeah.
Right. And that's not necessarily true, because there is a psychology to it where you really want to encourage them to read more of the page and give them reasons to scroll. And so they talk a little bit about that with a good introduction at the top, and then imagery that maybe explores further. And you ask, in order for them to see all of that, they need to scroll down, et cetera. This article is a good example where they got strategically placed images, and it just kind of encourages a top to bottom behavior on the website. And people do not mind, because scrolling is actually a very natural thing. And I think maybe that's because the technology within a mouse has made that a little bit easier with scroll wheels, as well as the ease of using this on a mobile device, where you're just using your finger to move up and down the vertical slab of glass that's in front of you. So things have changed a little bit in that respect.
I think you make a good point that this article is a good example, Martin. Honestly, if we took a step back and condensed this article, made the images really small and, crunched it together a whole lot more, it probably wouldn't be that long of an article. But they do such a good job. And, if you aren't seeing it on the screen, click on the link, because we'll have it in the show notes, just of using white space and not making it feel stuffy and cramped, even though they have a lot of information to convey. So, I'm definitely encouraged to scroll. It doesn't feel overwhelming to do that. Just the next little light piece that I'm going to look at, and keep going and see what else is next. So very good point.
One thing they do say about scrolling is they say, don't hijack scrolling. User control and freedom are among the key heuristics for UI design. Hijack scrolling is annoying to most users because it takes the control away and makes the scrolling behavior completely unpredictable. When you design a website, let the user control their browsing experience. So scroll bars within scroll bars, bad idea. Sometimes you get that when you use something called iframes, or when you go, and we'll show an example of this when we get to news and tech. Apple does this all the time, and they must think this is cool, but this kind of goes against this advice, is where you're scrolling and things move, but the page maybe doesn't move. So there's a parallax kind of treatment to it. The background moves, but the main content doesn't move till you scroll far enough, and so that's what they're talking about. There's inconsistent behavior.
Yeah. And maybe just to kind of circle back a little bit on video, they recommend that you mute your page. Like if you're going to have some video playing in the background or something like that, playing automatically, you should make sure it's muted and give them the option to click to hear what's going on.
For sure.
People just aren't expecting, just like not expecting their mouse to be hijacked. They're not expecting to get sound out of their browser when they click on a particular web page. That's not always well received. So yeah, doing that.
What have we got left?
Well, there's lots of little tidbits and things. I think another major topic is mobile. And I was interested to read, they quote that 50% of site visitors are now visiting via mobile devices. So I think if we turn back the pages of time and WELSTech history, you'd hear us quote different numbers in relation to that. But 50%, half of site visitors are coming from mobile. That's pretty amazing. And I would guess it's going to continue to go up. And the desktop type view or laptop type view is going to get smaller and smaller over time.
Right.
So mobile means that you need to have your site sized appropriately for display. We often refer to the term responsive design. So it expands to fill a full screen if someone's looking at it on a larger monitor, but it sizes and the images size appropriately and things to display on the small screen as well. It also means you need to maybe pay attention to things like buttons and selectors. You can imagine like little tiny radio buttons on a form are going to be hard to select with someone's big fat finger on a mobile screen. And so buttons and selectors should be sized appropriately for use on mobile as well.
Yep. There was something that's not on our list that I just kind of scrolled past that I want to highlight. And that's kind of a controversial topic, which we've actually talked about on the show before, and that's the use of stock photography. One of the points they make is avoid generic photos of people, which I thought was interesting. Using human face, because we normally want to encourage, at least in our ministry-focused websites, to use pictures of people, because it is about people, it's not about buildings or those kinds of things. And they say using human faces in design is an effective way to engage users. Of course, when visitors see faces of other humans, it makes them think that there are real humans behind the product organization. But in an attempt to build trust, many corporate websites rely on generic stock photos. When visitors see inauthentic photos, they may start to doubt the organization. I think we've all seen those, right? And we kind of we know, I don't think those people actually are part of that organization. So,
or I just saw this picture on a different website.
So these people look way too happy, and their haircuts are way too good. So
yeah, I actually do social media for LWMS, and I'm always challenged because those stock photos, they're always business dress, like a lot more formal than you'd see in just a normal church activities or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so, you have to make it fit, and maybe you use some of that, but you mix in some of your own photography from your organization.
Yep.
Take good pictures and use your own. So
exactly.
Martin, I think we've given them way more than 9 already, but towards the end of the article, there's a section on accessibility. And I think that's probably something that's easy to forget. However, there are hearing impaired people, there are visually impaired people that are trying to use your website as well. And being aware of that, just simple little things. For instance, the article mentioned that colorblind people often struggle with seeing reds and greens. And what do we use kind of on forms, especially to warn people, is red lettering and red outlines of fields and things like that. And instead, maybe we need to print out a message on the screen as well, if we have warnings or whatever to share. Mm-hmm. They have a link in the article about contrast checker, so you can use a tool to put in the colors of your links and things like that to see if they have enough contrast to make an impression on someone who's struggling visually or colorblind or whatever it may be.
Excellent. Just I think we should probably stop there. We could go on and on because they put a lot of thought into this, and this comes obviously from years of experience in building a tool that helps people design websites. So even though you may not necessarily be designing a website, this would actually be very good to read if you're evaluating what you're getting from a web designer. Are they giving you something that is potentially a challenge for your viewers? Is it hitting the mark? And this would be a good criteria, or to give them, this article and say, hey, we think that these items are important. So. Excellent. So we'll put a link to this in the show notes and take advantage, and also a link to all of the people that we mentioned at the top here if you are interested in a website design or redesign as well.
Martin, one more thing we wanted to maybe make mention of is a job opportunity that's open at the Synod building for a web designer.
Fancy that.
We can actually include a link in the show notes to the website where you can learn more about a potential career if you're interested in a full-time position at the CMM. So
come and work with some great people. Yeah.
For sure.
And great ministries. So that's exciting. Yes. So yeah, we'll put a link to that as well. All right. We should move on to what is next. News in tech. And news in tech this week comes from Apple. There were a lot of announcements over the last couple of weeks. They announced a new iPad, a new set of phones, a new set of computers, very expensive ones. But one that I wanted to highlight, which I use all the time, I don't have this particular model, but I think could come in handy for a lot of different people, and that's a newly designed AirPod. AirPods are those wireless headsets that go in your ear. They have kind of a over the ear model as well. But these AirPods are third generation, $179 wireless. They charge wirelessly as well. Newly designed. So there's a couple of different models. There's an AirPods and an AirPods Pro. The AirPods Pro have the silicone tips on them, and some people really just don't like something that far into their ear. So I think this new AirPods version is meant to address that and kind of a little bit of a redesign of their original AirPod model, but which they still sell, I think, for $129. So you've got a range of those. So I wanted to make you aware that those exist as our news and tech. And I found, I don't know, Sally, if you own any of these, but I find these very well-built, long-lasting, nice sounding devices. In fact, I've got one in my ear right now.
Powering WELSTech. How about that?
Yes.
I do not own the AirPods. I own the competitor, which syncs with the iPhone as well, the Beats Pro, and I enjoy them a lot. Not
really a competitor because Apple makes those too.
Yeah, that's true. They do have the over the ear, which is what was attractive to me about those. I really like those. So
excellent.
Good stuff.
Yep. Comes in handy. Okay, let's move along to the next segment of the show, which is Wells Now. And Wells Now, yes, right now. We are going to point your attention to a new program, or it's not new, it's been rebranded, let's call it that.
Rebranded and expanded.
Yes, rebranded and expanded. Oh, you've got it up already. Look at you. It is called The Foundation, and it is from our Congregational Services group. And you will probably remember, if you've been involved in any of the outreach programs in your congregation, you might have used their C or E products or promotions or campaigns, Christmas and Easter. And they've now got a dedicated page for all of these resources going out into the future, where you can also download worship plans in multiple different formats. They do it by year now. We're in year C. And
we'll be starting it.
Right. Coming this Advent. And unfortunately, I think by the time you hear this, the timeline for purchasing the Advent Christmas stuff will have passed, but there are still other digital resources here that you can use as well. Super well done. They've put a lot of energy and thought into these. They include checklists and PowerPoints and social media imagery. All those kinds of things are available in these resources. So there's a promotional video that tells you all about the foundation and the things that you can use. So I just wanted to make sure that you and your congregation are aware that these resources exist and are kind of in a nice, tidy, organized way to grab these now, which we're excited to make available.
Very good. And I think that we'll see more and more coming into the program, into the foundation for seasons beyond Christmas and Easter. So the full church year is represented there, and more resources are available. So good stuff.
Very good. So let's move on to our picks and or tips of the week.
And I am going to go first with that. And I have an article to share from Android Central called Top 15 Google Chrome Tips and Tricks. And honestly, there's a lot of great stuff here, and some of it you probably know about and others you didn't. I'm just going to share the shocker that I learned about because I guess I'm oblivious to icons in the Google Chrome browser, because what they pointed out is in the top bar of your Google Chrome browser, next to the tabs and the plus sign to open a new tab, there's a gray drop down arrow, which I had never clicked on till I read this article. And it allows you to search across your open tabs as well as your recently closed tabs. So by the end of the day, when you have 42 tabs open, you should be able to use this little drop down arrow and find what you're looking for amongst them all. And just as good as Google search can be, I suppose, is how good this is. But built right into the Chrome browser, it's the ability to search tabs. You can also bring it up with a Control-Shift-A. And I think this will be like my new best friend, because I'm constantly opening way too many tabs and trying to figure out what it is that I'm looking for.
Especially when that tab width is just about the size of the favicon that's on it. You have no other clue as to what's in it.
Exactly. And if you click on it, you might accidentally click the X and close the tab because they're so tiny. So this search capability, again, it's a gray drop down arrow. It's to the right of the plus sign, kind of over with the minimize and maximize and close icons in the upper right on the very top bar of Google Chrome. Check it out. Check out the article for other tips for Chrome as well.
Very nice. I like it. Okay, my pick is more of a tip of the week. Sometimes we do that as well. And I've been doing a little bit more writing lately, whether that be reports or blog posts, those kinds of things. And one thing that I've been thinking about and trying to implement in my workflow is a more distraction-free environment. And one of the ways to do that is really to have just one application in your face while you're doing your work. And there are some quick keyboard shortcuts that will enable that. And I think that whether you are on Windows or on Mac, it might be worth memorizing those to kind of get all the other stuff. And at any one time, I probably have 7 or 8 windows open on my screen, and they're peeking out, and they're tempting you to say, hey, maybe you ought to check your Outlook or check the web or check Facebook or whatever it is. There are ways, in fact, keyboard commands to quickly get rid of all that stuff. On Windows, it is Windows key and the home button, and that will basically remove everything but what you're looking at as what is highlighted, I should say, on your screen. And then for Mac, it is Option Command H. So if you are easily distracted as I am, these would be 2 very good keyboard shortcuts to kind of put away, tuck away, and get into your fingers, so that when the time comes for you to get focused and remove all those other distractions, those are good ways to just kind of clear the decks and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is the only program I want to pay attention to. Please stay out of the way, all you other programs. And this is a way to make your computer bend to your will and remove all those temptations from you. So, Sally, how do you like to work? Do you go full screen? Do you have a lot of windows open? Are you constantly kind of Windows tabbing through different programs all the time?
I'm just thinking that I'm hoping Martin doesn't ask me if I like distraction-free working. Being that he's my boss, I shouldn't confess that I'm very distracted way too often. But I like the big monitor, and I like a lot of things open, and I get distracted. Unfortunately, I'm kind of like the dog in Up, and I see the squirrel and jump. But I work at being focused and deep into my work. So
okay. Good.
It's challenging.
Well, here's some little good tips for you. Yeah, exactly. By the way, we'll put a link in the show notes to a whole list of keyboard shortcuts. There are all kinds of productivity nuggets in there, both for Windows and for Mac, to do different things with your windows, to open up search, all kinds of stuff. So take a look at those. It's particularly relevant for you Windows users because Windows 11 has some new ones that weren't in Windows 10. So you may want to take a look at those. All right, Sally, we are up to our ministry resource segment. What do we got?
Well, we'd like to tie into our discussion of good web design, and we thought we'd give you a tool to help you with color palettes. And it also is from Adobe, just the same group that our article that we referenced is from. Adobe is great at color, and they have a tool called Color to help you with your palettes, and it's at color.adobe.com. And basically it'll give you different color palettes based on different types of color harmony rules, from analogous to monochromatic and triads and complementary, all different ways that you can work with colors. And there's RGB numbers available. There's hex codes available for the colors. You can, drag things around on the screen with the color wheel, changing the color palette dramatically as you do those kind of things. So very fun, cool tool to work with. You can change your focus to a different color in the grouping and all kinds of things. So kind of hard to describe. You just got to go there and play with the colors that are there and see what kind of palettes it gives to you. It's funny, Martin, my son's actually taken an art class this semester, and he had to use like the 3 primary colors and mix all the different colors to represent the color wheel from the mixing and everything. So his project tied right into our discussion this week. One thing that I like about the Color website is an option called Extract Theme. It's available in the upper menu on the website. And what that allows you to do is bring in an image file, and it will come up with a color palette to go along with that. So you just drag and drop an image file in, and it goes and picks up colors that are part of that file and produces a color palette, gives you the hex codes and things to make use of that. And you also have the ability to kind of change it up to get colorful versus bright versus muted, deep and dark color palettes, all from the same image. So imagine it's your church or school logo that you're trying to find complementary colors to use on your website. This is going to give you those hex codes that are so important for web coding, basically, to come up with the colors that you need to go along with your logo or whatever it is that you upload. So I am just scratching the surface, I'm sure, of all the capabilities around color.adobe.com. It's a free tool. I think if you sign into your Adobe account, you can save your color palettes and things like that. So check it out. Let us know if you use it and how you use it. Mm-hmm. Great tool.
Giving Adobe a lot of love today. This is a tool we've talked about in the past, and they used to spell, I think they probably the technology used to be color with a K-U-L-E-R, I want to say even. So now it's just color, the traditional spelling .adobe.com. But yeah, I especially like that extract theme concept you were talking about, where if you're just kind of stumped and you're really not good at figuring out colors, just throw your logo up there or an image that you feel is representative of what you're after and let Adobe do the rest. Very, very cool. I like it a lot. Mm-hmm. All right, Sally, we are going to go on to community feedback.
And I'm going to share my screen one last time and make mention of the Gospel Outreach with Media Conference. We've actually talked about this on a couple of episodes, letting people know that it was going to be live. I believe the dates were October 18th through November 4th, but I could be off a little on those dates. But anyway, the site is live now since the last time we had a podcast. And what they've done is they've given you a whole host of conference sessions to visit, to read presentations, and then to have discussion around. And they cover a variety of categories: the gospel in glass, virtual reality emerging, the internet as blessing, creative visual arts, chips and toys, and then just a place for general comments as well. One that I thought was especially timely for our discussion today falls in the Internet as Blessing category, and it's called Digital Front Page Evangelism, written by Dave Maines. He's the president of a group called Praise and Proclaim Ministries, and they help people, congregations with outreach efforts. And one of the things they do is kind of design a landing page for the congregation to point people to as they are doing different outreach efforts. And he's got several examples linked to in the article that he posted there in the conference. One from Redeemer in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, that was designed by his company, may give you some ideas about different things that you could put on an outreach page for your congregation. So check out the article, check out the conference, and definitely dive in and leave comments and things on the different presentations. It's a neat discussion opportunity, and it's all at GOWM.org.
Excellent. Speaking of websites, ours is WELSTech.wels.net. If you'd like to catch up on any of the things we talked about, we have links for all of the stuff there, as well as previous episodes. And in addition to that, we have all the places that you can get in touch with us. So if you'd want to contribute to community feedback, as we have from time to time and encourage all the time, that's the place to go. You can find all of our social media links, leave a voicemail, or just send us an email, WELSTech@wels.net. Sally, that's going to about do it. Good show. We're going to do this again in a couple of weeks, and we're going to be talking about policies and procedures, the why, what, who, how, where questions. We talked a little bit about this before, previous shows, quite some time ago, in fact, but it's kind of near and dear to my heart as I'm working with our congregation to figure out where we have some gaps in some of our policies and procedures, what ones we need, what ones we don't, what form should they take, who should be involved with writing them, where should you store them, and how to share them. So all kinds of good stuff on policies and procedures. We'll make it as interesting as possible. No, it doesn't sound that way, but we'll help you out.
You know, it doesn't sound that way until you need it. And then it sounds really important.
Exactly.
So good to pay attention.
Exactly. So tune in for that when we gather again. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a blessed week. Bye-bye.